Most people don't set out to ruin their lives, but destruction doesn't come in a single moment. It happens through small, seemingly harmless steps. There's an uncomfortable truth about married women that most men don't realize. It's not about weakness or a lack of morals. It's about human nature and how easily boundaries erode over time. No one wakes up thinking, "Today, I'll throw away everything I built." But it starts in the smallest ways: a casual chat, a lingering glance, the way her heart skips when a message pops up from someone who isn't her husband. Psychologists call this the slow erosion of boundaries, a gradual shift, step by step, until one day, she barely recognizes herself in the mirror. So, why do some married women become vulnerable to external temptation? And more importantly, how do they justify it to themselves? Let's break it down. Number 1, the unspoken void. Why some married women seek outside attention. Great marriages thrive on partnership, but not all of them stay that way. Despite taking vows, some women find themselves drawn to outside attention, not necessarily for escape, but for something they feel they've lost. At its core, human connection is essential. Women, in particular, crave emotional intimacy, not just physical presence. In the early years of marriage, there's excitement, deep conversations, and a rush of feeling seen. But over time, routine sets in. Conversations shift from dreams and desires to grocery lists and schedules. The passion fades into obligation. And worst of all, she starts to feel invisible. Dr. John Gottman, a leading relationship psychologist, explains that the biggest relationship killer isn't fighting, it's indifference. The moment a woman feels unnoticed, her subconscious starts seeking validation elsewhere, often without her even realizing it. A simple compliment from a stranger, a conversation with a man who actually listens, a moment where she feels interesting again. Suddenly, that tiny interaction feels like oxygen after years of suffocation. This isn't about physical attraction. It's about feeling desired. In psychology, this is called the Coolidge effect, the idea that novelty fuels desire. When every day in a marriage feels the same, even the smallest spark of excitement can feel electrifying. Not because she doesn't love her husband, not because she's a bad person, but because she craves the thrill of being chosen. Another overlooked factor? Loss of identity. Before marriage, she was an individual. She had dreams, interests, and passions. After marriage, her identity often shifts. She becomes a wife, a mother, a caretaker. While these roles are meaningful, they can also feel restrictive. If she starts to feel like she's disappearing into these roles, she may unconsciously seek interactions that remind her of who she used to be. Number 2, the justification game. How the mind excuses the unthinkable. No one plans to cross a line. It happens slowly. So slowly, the mind finds ways to justify it before it even becomes reality. Guilt is heavy. And if someone can convince themselves they're not really doing anything wrong, they don't have to carry that burden. So the excuses begin. It's just a little tension. What's the harm? We're just talking. It's not like I'm cheating. I deserve to feel good about myself. This is what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that happens when actions contradict beliefs. Instead of facing the discomfort, the mind bends reality to make it acceptable. And the deeper she goes, the stronger the justifications become. If my husband paid more attention to me, I wouldn't need this. This isn't about my marriage. It's just something for me. I've sacrificed so much. I deserve this. The most dangerous shift is when she stops seeing her actions as wrong and starts seeing them as justified. At this point, it's no longer about right or wrong. It's about what feels fair. Number 3, the breaking point, when it's too late to turn back. The chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they're too strong to be broken. Every person who crosses a line has a moment of no return. The point where it's no longer just talking, no longer just flirting, no longer just harmless fun. Psychologists call this threshold theory, the idea that the hardest part isn't doing something, It's doing it the first time. The first message that feels a little too personal. The first excuse to meet up just as friends. The first moment of hesitation before pulling away. After that, the second time is easier. The third time, effortless. At first, secrecy feels unnatural. The hidden messages, the little white lies. But the human brain is frighteningly adaptable. She stops feeling guilty. She becomes better at covering her tracks. And eventually, the lies become second nature. At this stage, the affair isn't just a temptation, it's an addiction. Neuroscientists have found that emotional and romantic attraction trigger the same dopamine rush as drug addiction. It's no longer about the man. It's about the feeling she gets when she's with him. She tells herself, I can stop anytime. But can she? By now, the marriage has already shifted. Her husband is no longer the main relationship in her life. The real connection, the real passion, the real her, it's all happening somewhere else. And at this point, there are only two ways the story ends. She gets caught. She walks away from her marriage because she can't live a double life anymore. The hard truth. So why are some married women the easiest prey? Not because they're weak, not because they lack morals, because they're human. Because people don't seek destruction, they seek feeling alive. And when they believe they'll never find that feeling again in their marriage, temptation becomes impossible to resist. Understanding this gives you power. The power to see the signs before it's too late, to read between the lines, and to recognize the slow erosion before it turns into something irreversible. Because once the line is crossed, there's no going back. If you found this eye-opening, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Stoa Life for more deep dives into the hidden truths of human nature. Stay aware, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.